Everybody, and welcome back to the show we call Keep It in the Family. I'm your host, Laurie, and I'm joined on the show today by my beautiful niece, Kenya.
Yes.
Kenya, how you doing?
Good, how are you?
I'm all right, man. On today's show, we're going to be discussing what went wrong. What went wrong for Arsenal in the semi-final first leg defeat against PSG. And the fact that we've got you here, Kenya, makes perfect sense because you was at the game. You saw everything unfold. So you're well placed to give your thoughts. So... you know what? Let's get straight into it. I want you to, for the benefit of those who didn't go, describe for me the atmosphere in the ground, because I watched the game at the Box Park and the atmosphere there was mental before the game. You were at the ground. What was the atmosphere like in the ground?
Yeah, so I'd say going into the game, everyone's very hyped up, very excited. Sitting down, there's a lot of singing. Just in the build-up to the game, it was very loud. Lots of singing from both sets of fans. But I think the Arsenal fans were very loud. It was very singing and stuff like that. And then we do the anthem and everything's good. And then I look over, I'm sat in I'm sat in the clock end. I look over and I just see this tifo. What is that? And I look at it and everyone around me is like, what's that? And we were looking at it, and that, honestly, that was kind of like a bit of a damper on, I don't know, I can't speak for everyone else, but we came into this game being told that we've got a wicked tifo, we've turned down another group's tifo because we've planned something really special, and then you just see a blown up version of the badge, and it's like, is that it?
Did you bring your boots? Because the manager
I didn't bring my boots, no, I didn't bring my boots, but even so, singing, loud. They score in the first 5 minutes, and I think everyone was, straight away we're like stunned because it was like 5 minutes. Yeah. How have you allowed that? It was like a moment of magic really for them. And then as well, you could tell the crowd was really frustrated. I think the referee had I don't like to blame referees at all. I thought the referee had a really poor game. And the linesman.
He seemed to lose control of the game pretty quickly.
I was sat right where that Saka Nuno Mendes thing happened. I was sat right there. I was sat row 4. And I could see with my own eyes it was not a foul. No, and the linesman's there with his... And I was like, what kind of... Yeah. I was like, if this is the officiating that we have in a Champions League semi-final, like, what is that?
Yeah, the referee...
I'd say the crowd... we were very frustrated. And I think rightfully so, because there was so many disjointed things happening in the game. But I wouldn't say the atmosphere was bad. I've been to a bad Emirates atmosphere, but it wasn't bad. It was just more so fans were frustrated.
Do you think it was because we was expected to make a strong start, but it was PSG who actually made the start? They scored the goal. Yeah. And you could see them just grow in confidence. Yeah. I mean, let's talk about that goal. I mean, because...
it's an excellent goal.
Yeah, it was a good goal, but I have to say that some of the marking... how you allowed Dembele so much space in the box.
I agree.
mean, Declan Rice appeared to take responsibility for that. You could see when they scored, he looked up and the camera panned on him and he was mouthing to it. He was having a go at himself. So I'm assuming that he would have been the one earmarked to mark Dembele. Because you can't leave Dembele with that amount of space in the box.
Yeah, no, I agree. Someone's got to be on him at all times. And I just think we afforded him too much space. I think throughout the game, we afforded him a lot of space. Even times when he wasn't with the ball, I was like, this guy's just stood over there. He's like calling for the ball.
So listen, the manager must have had a game plan for Dembele because he's been their best player this season. Like, his man scored 30 odd goals.
Yeah, exactly.
So it would seem remiss that they didn't have a game plan for picking him up at set pieces or inside the box. That would surprise me. Yeah. I thought in midfield we struggled. I've got to say, listen, I want to put it out there. I'm not having a go at the team selection because that was probably the team that I would have played.
Same.
However, it soon became apparent to me that the midfield wasn't really working right. Mourinho in there, no disrespect, man, but he didn't have the legs to cope with him, man. You know what I mean?
I personally think Rice... I said in my fan cam, I thought Rice, Miles and Mourinho are the only three that I could look at and say they actually stuck to what they not usually do, but they did what they were supposed to do all right. So Mourinho, he won a load of duels and stuff. Rice, he's driving forward with the ball, also trying to hold it down in 6. Miles Skelly, honestly, this kid's incredible.
Yeah, he was...
But other places in midfield, like Odigard, like Trossard, oh my God, it was just woeful. Every time Trossard was I honestly thought he was the worst player on the pitch.
Really?
Yeah, I do. Because you know what? There was a moment where I think Rice got the ball and pass it to Trossard, and instead of advancing the ball, he kept holding onto the ball. He's got a habit of doing that because he knows he's not got the pace. But one thing about Trossard, he's got the technicality to beat you there. And I'm like, you're getting played in these great balls where actually you have the advantage to beat a fullback or a defender or the midfielder, and you're just like pivoting in midfield. You're doing all these turns and flicks, and it was so frustrating to watch. Odegaard was kind of similar, but at least he was trying to get the ball forward. Oh, it was just, I think, you know, I think with when Partey plays, Partey and Rice make up for almost Odegaard not really having the greatest of games. So,
I mean, the fear was that we were going to miss Partey, and it turned out that fear was that fear was justified because he was a big miss, and it was apparent right from the off. They run the midfield. As I said, I don't think Mourinho covered himself in glory. He just didn't have the legs. Kept going to the floor looking for fouls, which is, whenever you see a player do that, to me, that's almost like an admission that they're struggling in the game. Have you noticed that? I mean, I know forwards will typically look for fouls to get free kicks, but when you see midfielders constantly dropping on the floor complaining, that you think, come on, bro. You know what I mean? So, and listen, no disrespects, but I just think he struggled in midfield. I think that, the midfield is often the engine room of the team, and our midfield wasn't functioning, so I think that definitely went wrong.
I think.
Let's talk about, though, Martin Odegaard, because I was very interested to hear you say that you thought Trossard was worse, but I've got to be honest, at the box park, Martin Odegaard was getting it from the fans, man. I mean, listen, I don't want to scapegoat him, but I think it's important for me to lay bare some facts. So the facts are these. Martin Odegaard, he had 8 duels in that game, of which he won 2. He either was dispossessed or gave away possession 14 times. He only made 1 tackle, no goals, no assists, and overall a pretty poor performance. And how he stayed on the pitch for 85 minutes could only be down to the fact that he's a captain. If he was any other player, he would have been hooked long before then. And I've got to say, man, it's a real shame because I'm a fan of Odegaard. I'm on the record of saying I'm an admirer of his talent. But in recent weeks, man, his form's kind of fallen off a cliff. And on Tuesday, that was exemplified. Yeah,
look, I think he's looking right now like he's stuck in a box and he can't get out. And that's actually weird to say because this is a guy, we've seen it in the last 2 seasons, especially, where he makes something out of nothing. You're like, oh my God. Like, I even think back to when we played Porto at home. Again, we were 1-0 down and he just made something out of nothing and it turned into a goal. Like, that's the type of player that we know. So when we watch these performances, it's so frustrating because it's like, we actually know your quality. We know that you're top dog. We know how good you are. We weren't saying that you're world class for no reason. That's not something that a lot of, me and you especially, we don't say that lightly.
No.
Because I do think he is a world class player, but right now he's in such a poor run of form that people are looking at that and revisiting what they said. And I do have to agree, he was really poor. He was really poor. I personally do think Trossard frustrated me more.
Yeah, I think Martinelli didn't cover himself in.
But again, like I know Odegaard was bad, but I still think there was other players that were bad or just as bad, if I'm being honest. I thought Trossard was dreadful. Like, he had no presence at all. He didn't tell me one moment where those centre-backs had to bully him, where they had to really think about what he was doing down the middle.
He did have that one opportunity on goal. I think it was Declan Rice made the run from midfield.
But even that came from the left hand. That came from him being on the left-hand side, not even him playing as a striker. When him and Mikel Merino are rotating round and he's now having to take up the midfield duty, he's not doing it properly. It was so frustrating to watch. And like Martinelli, I don't know about you guys. When I was watching it in the ground, I was like, he should have scored.
Yeah, he should have.
You know, my dad said, "Oh, it was a great save," and I'm like, I don't really think it. I mean, it was a save.
It was a good save.
But I said it was straight at the goalkeeper.
Yeah, but I mean,
again. We talk about Donnarumma. Tell me one moment where Donnarumma was really challenged, where we were flinging shots at him, like how we did to Courtois, where Courtois was like getting up, looking very frantic, having to save a lot. We didn't have to do that. Everything was very routine. He caught almost everything that went straight at him, other than the Trossard one, where he had to get a little bit of a hand to it.
Yeah, I would say that they were good saves. It's one of them whereby he saves it, so it's a good save. But then you also look at it from the attacking point of view. You said, really and truly, a top striker in a game like that, you should really be burying it. I mean, we saw the quality of the finish in the
Yeah, Inter, Barca, oh my God.
You know what I mean? That
all
was
goals
on
were
another
wicked.
level.
All 6
you know
goals
what I
were
mean?
incredible.
So if you're comparing it with that, then yeah, those really should have been finished. But they wasn't. It's part of the frustration of the night. I thought Martinelli was below par.
Yeah.
Even Saka, and you know how much I rate Saka.
Yeah.
He had a difficult game. He had moments, but he didn't really impose himself on the game the way we would have liked. I mean, it was interesting to note that PSG did their homework with Saka. They double teamed him.
Literally,
and they, you know what I mean, they frustrated him.
Yeah.
As evidence when he got booked and kicked the ball.
Yeah. And that goes to show how, like, in that instance, the ref was just, him and the liner was having a bit of a murder. Like, I just don't understand how that was given as a foul. But again, this is a issue that we've known for a long time. If you lock Saka out of a game, I saw at moments, not even just 2-man, like almost a whole PSG team are running towards Saka because they know he creates everything.
That's right.
They know at the moment Odigard's not a threat. They know Martinelli at the moment is not a threat. This is the guy that's actually a threat. They literally at one point, I remember sitting there was about 6 players around him. That's how good he is. If you lock him off, it's like, oh, what's gonna happen?
And so then you're looking for Martinelli to impact the game, and unfortunately, I mean, you know what was so frustrating about Martinelli? Like, Hakimi got booked early in the game.
Exactly.
So you're thinking, right,
run at your guy.
He's there for it.
Give him
you know what I mean?
something to
You've got the
think about.
pace. You're quicker than Hakimi. Go for it. Be aggressive. You know what I mean? Draw that foul that might get him sent off or get us a free kick, or you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Unfortunately, that didn't materialise. So it was a frustrating game for the most part. I mean, there were some positives though. I've got to give shout outs to Saliba and
I thought they were alright.
Saliba and Kivior. I thought that they coped well with PSG. Overall, Jurriën Timber had a bit of a warm time. I think he got better in the second half.
Yeah.
I thought that Lewis Skelly was probably our best player on the night.
Name me something that I can't remember Due giving us that's another young, incredible, talented individual. Definitely. Miles just marked him out.
And some of the runs he was making.
Oh my God, that pass he made in. I was like, oh my God, I just saw this kid. He just picked up the ball. He just ran past Fabian Ruiz,
so strong on the ball.
João Neves, Vitinho. He just made them look like light food. Yeah. Just passed this incredible ball in that should have been a goal.
So Kivior, Saliba, Miles Lewis Skelly, who else?
Yeah, I thought.
I think that's probably about it.
Right? I thought Rice drove really well with the ball, but again, this is
Rice. I thought Rice in the second half.
With Rice and Marino, it's like they needed that extra help in that midfield at times, and it wasn't there.
Yeah, and
I think that's kind of why people might look at those performances and say, oh, it wasn't that great. But I saw them both winning their duels, trying to advance the ball. And really and truly, the people who were picking up the ball weren't driving with it, weren't ambitious enough to try and score.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I've got to ask Kenyon, because this was a topic of much debate at Box Bar after the game. The manager, Mikel Arteta, how do you rate his performance? Because I'm going to go on the record and say I thought his in-game management on the night was left a lot to be desired. I don't want to go in too hard, but listen, I've got to be fair, man. I mean, after the Real Madrid game, everybody gave him credit.
Flowers.
We said he nailed it. A lot of people said he arrived. He showed out on a big stage, out-coached Ancelotti.
Yeah.
So we gave him his flowers, but it's only fair that we be fair. And on Tuesday night, I thought he dropped the ball, man.
Yeah.
I mean, the game was crying out for a change. I mean, don't get me wrong. We the first 35 minutes, PSG played us off the park. We came more into it after then. Had a decent end to the first half. Second half, we competed, but then it kind of petered out towards the end.
Yeah.
We needed to make some changes. I was disappointed that he didn't make no change. I mean, his first change was in the 85th minute. He brings on a right back, Ben White, for a right back, Timber. Now, okay, Timber might have been carrying a knock, but the aesthetics of that just didn't look good.
Yeah.
We need a goal. You're making a defensive sub. Then we was like wondering what's wrong with Wanyeri. Like, surely, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He brings him on in the 89th minute?
Yeah.
6 minutes to go.
Literally 5 minutes.
Come on, bro.
I mean, my thing is, I thought tactically he set up wrong. I just felt like we basically said to PSG, right, here you have the ball. We're not going to engage, really. We're just going to sit back. And I just think that's the worst thing you could do to a team that we're seeing in almost, other than the other day where they lost to Nice, I saw some stat like they've been in all of their games that they've been winning by 4 or more goals. Like, why are you sitting off a team like that? What you
do you think that the way they came at us and with the early goal, do you think they just put us on the back foot and we just struggled from there on in?
No, do
you think that was a tactical decision of the manager, or do you think that PSG just forced us on the back foot?
No, I actually think it was tactical because we saw it in the first 30 minutes. We were just like, we're not really bothered about keeping the ball. We're just going to let you have it.
But we couldn't get it off them.
And I'm just like, that's the worst thing you can do. The best thing you can do to nullify a high intensity team like that with a lot of young energy is say, you're not even going to see the ball. We're bopping it around. You're not even going to touch the ball. I don't know if you remember when we lost to Man City 4-1 in the 2022-23 season. They did the exact same thing to us. They knew we were high and energetic. They knew we were really good at pressing. But they said, you're not getting the ball. And that's why we lost. Yeah. And I just think we instead gave them too much grace and said, right, have the ball. You can bop it around. You can pass it. And that's not what happened. I think as well, even worse, we're missing a guy who's really good at ball carrying, which is Thomas Partey. And we've then just said, right, we're just going to allow you guys to be in full possession. And I could understand if maybe in the first 5 minutes you're just stunned by an excellent moment. But no, we persisted for another 30 minutes after that to do the same thing. It was only until the last 10 minutes of the first half we decided, actually, now we want the ball. We want to play our football. And when we started playing our football, we scored an offside goal, which, it was offside, but we scored a goal. We looked so much better. And as you said, it petered out. I think the tactics of it was wrong, in my personal opinion.
I think you dropped the ball on that particular occasion. I mean, listen, in many ways, I'm going to say this, Kenny, I don't know what you think, but that game ending 1-0 is probably as good as we could have hoped for.
Barcola should have scored. Ramos hit the crossbar. Do you know what I mean?
They hit the post, they hit the crossbar.
Yeah, hit the post.
Kvaratskhelia. Yeah. He had an excellent chance. He kicked it straight to the keeper.
Exactly. Doué, I guess he hit straight at Raya. And in terms of the changes, at one point I was saying, look, it's so obvious that midfield needs help. Go and get someone. Odegaard's not on it. Trossard's. If you're not going to take off Odegaard, then take off Trossard, who's just not of any help whatsoever. Take him off then and get somebody else in. These are your guys. Do you know what I mean? You have to make changes. And in one way I was frustrated, but after the game I'm like, you know what? Do you risk it and bring on an Ethan Nwaneri who's still young and a bit inexperienced?
To me, it wasn't even a risk.
Yeah,
because nothing was happening.
Let's say though you do that and you now go 2-0 down or you go 3-0 down, and that was very likely in the game.
Yeah.
And now you're 2 and 3 down, at least with 1 goal. You can overcome that.
Yeah.
That's actually something that can quite easily be overcome if you're at it. Whereas 2 or 3 starts to look impossible. So he's probably at that moment looking at it like, let's just not concede more. Let's not open ourselves up. You maybe do that in the second leg.
Yeah.
You don't open yourselves up maybe in the first leg to be battered.
I hear that. And that brings me on nicely to what I was going to ask you next in closing. Listen, we're 1-0 down, and like we said, we both agreed that it could have been worse.
Yeah.
We still have a fighting chance of going through in this tie. We've seen PSG concede goals. They conceded 3 against Nice. They conceded 3 against Villa a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
They're not impregnable. They're a very good team, but they're not invincible. The task is not insurmountable. What would you like to see change in the second league if Arsenal are to come through this? And we will be doing a more detailed breakdown on Monday when we will do 5 ways in which Arsenal can get the job done. But just very quickly, what do you see as the key things we need to do or key things we need to address?
I think physicality is number one. We're not going to beat them technically. They're a technically gifted team. We don't really have that all around the pitch. We're good at physicality. Go back to that. Go back to, a bit of a shoulder barge and them things there, and just play how you are used to playing, because that's how we've beaten. Intensity. Yeah, that's how we've beaten Sporting and PSV and Real Madrid, etc. So go back to how you're used to playing, and don't be afraid. I think in those first 30 minutes we were a bit afraid as well.
Do you think Thomas Partey coming back into the team, as we expect he will do on Wednesday next week, do you think that will be a crucial area that we can exploit?
Yeah, that will be really good for us, because again we've got more solidity now in midfield. We can advance Mikel Merino into his not actual position, but the position that we want to see him in at the moment,
which is that false 9.
Yeah, and I think as well that physical presence up front. When we beat PSG 2-0, it was mostly also due to Havertz kind of really roughing up those centre backs and giving them something to think about. So yeah, that's what I kind of want to see.
I've got to ask you, because there's been a lot of conjecture, a lot of talk, a lot of questions asked. Martin Odigard, A, do you keep faith with him? B, should he keep the captaincy? Or, you know what I mean? Like, what's your thoughts on the Odigard situation? Because a lot has been said at the moment.
Yeah.
Some people who know their football very well are saying it could be time for him to be dropped for the Bournemouth game, with a view to him not playing, or not starting anyway.
Yeah.
Not starting against PSG. Where do you stand on that?
I think he should start against PSG. Unfortunately, we're just very light there. We don't have anything else that we could really experiment with. I think you can bring on Zinchenko, but we don't know what that looks like. I'd rather just try and go into someone like that should be a sub, not a start, if we're being honest. In terms of captaincy, look, just because a guy has a bad run of form doesn't mean they're not a leader. We see how the young players have spoken about how young players and even senior players, Mikel Merino, Kai Havertz, Calafiori, all saying that when they came in, he was the first one to connect with them, speak with them, help them settle in to life here. He's on and off the pitch, a leader, claps all the fans. I don't think you should strip him of captaincy. He's not done anything wrong in terms of personality-wise, or how he's directed himself as a player to us fans, or anything to be stripped of captaincy. He's just had a bad run of form.
Would you play him for the Bournemouth game, or would you rest him?
I'd probably rest him, to be honest.
Okay.
I'd rather get Ethan out there.
Yeah, that makes sense. Any other changes for the Bournemouth game?
Timber rest, Miles rest. I'd start Partey. I'd try and rest Rice. Oh, it's hard because basically,
on the one hand, it's that balance, isn't it? You got to rest some players, but then you want to try and keep momentum and form.
Yeah, and we do have to beat Bournemouth, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, we do.
We have to beat Bournemouth, because all those other teams are breathing down our neck because we dropped the ball against Palace. Yeah. So I would make a lot of changes, but still try and make it a strong team, a mixture of the two.
Okay, Kenya, thanks very much. So that's a little summary of what went wrong on Tuesday. But there is another game. As we said, next week, Wednesday, we go again. It's not insurmountable. We are 1-0 down. But listen, man, 1-0 leads have been overcome several times in the past. If Arsenal do get it right on Wednesday, they certainly have a chance. It's an uphill battle, but it's not an insurmountable one. Kenya, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we will be going again next Monday, when the show will be breaking down the ways we think, a more detailed breakdown of how Arsenal can overcome PSG and get through to their first Champions League final since 2006. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your support. If you're new to the channel, please like, share and subscribe. We are out. Take care.